How long would you like this to be? 30
Five,
seconds?
10 minutes.
Oh, okay, long one. Okay,
Yeah.
with the phone.
This is Michael de Laine of the Copenhagen Voice. I am at the People's Climate Summit in Copenhagen. With me is Damiel Foa from an organization called 51 SIM. Daniel, can you tell me a little bit about that organization, what it does, please?
Hi, I'm based in Beijing at 51sim.org, which stands for Sustainable Innovation Movement. So for sustainable development, technical innovation and movement. And we are a grassroots organization in Beijing that works with government, individuals, also with corporates to spread the social message, to create social entrepreneurs so the green movement can go from knowing that there's an issue to actually seeing how they can be part of solving the problems.
China has recently released some emission reduction targets. Do you feel that they are reasonable and that they can be achieved?
I think they can be achieved. Some people say they don't go far enough. I think it's better to set a target which you can achieve than previously in other countries in the world have set targets which they haven't achieved and it just went to the buy side. I think about having targets that we can focus on and people can. China has a good record for setting, when they set something, to actually making it go through.
You've been talking today about the role of civil society, which includes NGOs and people in the street. Mm-hmm. But how do they look upon climate change and the way the government in China is dealing with it?
How do NGOs look at individuals?
No, the people in China and the NGOs.
Okay. The government sees it's a problem and looks at it from a very macro level of what needs to be achieved. So, when they think about, we need to have X number of 10 gigawatts of electricity produced by what kind of power, the NGO perspective has been more recently engaged, and now actually it's one of the areas that the government now is kind of loosening up to let more NGOs work and operate. And they realize as long as the objective of those NGOs is not in conflict with the overall aims of the country, is not a problem. But also another thing I'd like to mention is the kind of Western method of doing a protesting. It's just not a Chinese way. It's not a Confucian way. And so I think people often get confused between like something which is communist and which is something which is intrinsically within the Chinese culture, whether it was a communist state or not.
So how do people put pressure on the politicians to do what is right?
Well, I think one of the things that happened, we did the green car standards in China. People from the China National Industry Standardizations and various other bodies were all competing, saying who should do green car standards. And then we ended up doing it, and we were accepted into the Olympic building of the New Technology Center, which is a government, government building, which was presented in fronting 14 Nobel laureates. So in China, if you do something and you're not breaking the rule in doing it, and it proves to be beneficial to the country, then you get intrinsically chosen to do it.
The government is willing to make these changes, or does it take the long-term view that we'll do it step by step?
I think government, you need to break it down, because central committee in the highest level, they're educated, smart, well-traveled people. They know the issues, and so. There's of course sometimes a problem in implementation down to the bottom, and when you have people at the grassroots or provincial or township levels have their own interests, which are not always fully inside with the government. This is common in any country in the world, or I would say any country which is big like China. If we took the European Union as a group, or we took the US as a group, this is very common. China does see it because the current situation of droughts, pollution, this cannot continue because there is 1.3 billion people in the country that need to have fresh water and fresh food, and those things are a prerequisite for stability.
In terms of emissions, China has a low per capita emission level compared with, say, the US. But there's increasing prosperity in China, so if nothing else works out, it will just continue emitting at a higher and higher rate per capita. Do you feel that it's necessary for the government to take the longer-term view and put a cap on individual emissions?
I think A, that's very hard to do anywhere in the world. B, if you look at things like the Kyoto Protocol within China, if it wasn't for the 2005 Kyoto Protocol, there wouldn't have been this massive CDM. 50% of the global CDM projects happened in mainland China. And people say, oh, but China made so much from CDM. I said, well, that was the whole point. The whole point was to make them reduce the carbon intensity and get these, energy efficiency projects funded, get these wind turbine projects funded, and get these things to scalability. So I think that the Chinese government it's one of the few countries in the world which has a real short-term need to curb emissions, which is not the case in many countries which are actually much higher in per capita, because China knows it cannot be at a US per capita pollution level and have a sustainable ecosystem which creates a sustainable economic system which creates a sustainable political system.
So they do have a holistic view.
Yes, and I think when you look at something in a concept like Taoism, it's a much more generational perspective, concept between the position of the Earth with humanity. If you actually look at it traditionally in culture, I'm talking 300 years ago, Western culture is very much focused, this is my face, I'm doing portraits. But if you look at Chinese culture, traditional art, it's very much like mountain scenes with small people. It's like nature was always the big piece, and humanity was always the smaller piece. So I think that's something that can be said, can be read into that from a cultural perspective.
If you have one recommendation to the UNFCCC COP15 today, what would that be?
I would like to see that we can get carbon unlocked, not just at the big project level, because a lot of that's in the top. That's the top of the pyramid in the carbon world. I'd like to see that we can unlock the carbon within the middle level, so people who are doing biogas heaters, solar water heaters, in various different markets in the world, and for actually aggregated carbon projects to be eligible for carbon credits in the future.
And what do you think will be the outcome of these 2 weeks?
As I say, soon to tell. The fact that everyone's here, the fact that the US is participating, the fact that China's participating is a great start. Everyone's on the same page. If you're not even on the same page, you're not even discussing, then what hope do you have? So I think that Obama, he came to China, he was very well received, he's very well liked, and although I'm not from the US, it's critical that China and US agree on these things, and also can learn from the best practices in countries like Denmark, which has done an excellent job in terms of energy intensity, in terms of technology, in terms of transportation networks, the wind, etc., etc. And I'd like to see that these parties can find ways that are small steps, encouraging business to be able to have easier flows of technology, easier protection so those flows of technology happen quicker, so we can do what happened with the internet to happen with the clean tech economy and make it happen now within 1 or 2 years.
Damiel Foa, thank you much indeed.
Thank you very much.